My boyfriend said I'm not wife material because his religious family thinks I'm too independent and career focused, so I proved them right by leaving him for someone who actually wants to marry me. I'm Maria, 28F, and I've been with Joshua, 31M, for 7 years now. We met when I was 21 and he was 24, right after I graduated college. He was working at a tech startup and seemed so mature and put together compared to the guys I knew in school. Let me give you some background about us. Joshua comes from what you'd call a traditional family. His parents have been married for 35 years. His mom stayed home with the kids until they were teenagers, then worked part-time at a church office. His dad worked in banking his whole career. They live in the same house they bought when they got married. Joshua has 2 younger sisters who both got married by 25 and already have kids. My background is different. My parents divorced when I was 16. My mom worked 2 jobs to support us after the divorce. My dad moved across the country and I see him maybe once a year. I have one older brother who's been married and divorced twice already. My family doesn't really do big gatherings or traditional holidays. When Joshua and I started dating, I was working as a marketing assistant at a small agency. I lived in a studio apartment with my college roommate. I was still figuring out my life and having fun on weekends. Joshua seemed so stable and confident. He had his own apartment, a good job, and clear goals. I was drawn to that stability. Our relationship moved pretty fast. We were exclusive within 2 months and I was staying at his place most nights by month 3. By our first anniversary, we were basically living together. I officially moved in with him after 2 years. Those early years were great. Joshua encouraged me to take risks with my career. When I wanted to switch to a bigger marketing firm, he helped me practice for interviews. When I got nervous about asking for a raise, he coached me through it. He supported my decision to go back to school part-time for my MBA. We traveled together, went to concerts, tried new restaurants. I introduced him to my friends from college and work. He introduced me to his family and coworkers. His parents seemed to like me. His sisters always included me in their group chats and invited me to their kids' birthday parties. But there were some things that bothered me over the years. Joshua would sometimes make comments about other couples we knew. When his coworker got engaged to his girlfriend of 3 years, Joshua said it was too soon and they should have waited longer. When his sister got pregnant with her 3rd kid, he said she was moving too fast and should have spaced them out more. He also had opinions about how I dressed for certain events. When we went to his company holiday party, he suggested I wear something more conservative than what I picked out. When we went to his sister's wedding, he wanted me to change my dress because he thought it was too bright. I usually went along with his suggestions because I wanted to make a good impression. Joshua's family would sometimes make little comments too. His mom once said I had an interesting job for a woman my age. His dad asked if I planned to keep working after we got married. His sisters would talk about their kids and then ask when Joshua and I were planning to start a family. Joshua would always change the subject when this came up. About a year ago, I started bringing up marriage more directly. We'd been together 6 years at that point. Most of our friends were getting engaged or married. I was 27 and starting to think about timelines for having kids. Joshua would always say we didn't need to rush anything and that we were happy as we were. 3 months ago, his younger sister announced she was pregnant with her 2nd child. At the family dinner where she shared the news, Joshua's mom made a comment about how nice it would be to have more grandchildren soon. She looked right at me when she said it. Joshua didn't say anything. That night, I told Joshua we needed to talk about our future. I said I loved him and wanted to spend my life with him, but I needed to know if he felt the same way. I asked him directly if he saw us getting married and having a family together. Joshua was quiet for a long time. Then he said he loved me and couldn't imagine his life without me, but he wasn't ready for marriage yet. I asked what he was waiting for. He said he wanted to be more established in his career first. He had just gotten a promotion 6 months earlier and was making good money, so this didn't make sense to me. I pressed him more. I asked if it was about money, about timing, or about me. He got uncomfortable and said it wasn't about any of those things. He just wasn't ready. I asked when he thought he might be ready. He said he couldn't give me a timeline. 2 weeks later, I brought it up again. I told him I was starting to worry that we had different visions for our future. I said I wanted to get married and have kids, and I needed to know if he wanted the same things. I told him I wasn't trying to pressure him, but I needed some clarity. This time, Joshua got more specific. He said he did want to get married someday, but he wasn't sure if he wanted to marry me. He said I was an amazing girlfriend and he loved being with me, but he had doubts about whether I was the right person to be his wife. I asked him what he meant. He said I was fun and exciting and he loved that about me, but those weren't the qualities he was looking for in a wife. He said I liked to go out too much. He said I was too comfortable talking about personal things with people we didn't know well. He said I was too casual about some things that should be more serious. I reminded him that he used to love going out with me. He's the one who suggested we try that new cocktail bar downtown. He's the one who wanted to go to that music festival last summer. He laughed when I told embarrassing stories at dinner parties. He never seemed to have a problem with any of this before. Joshua said those things were fine for dating, but marriage was different. He said he needed a wife who was more focused on building a home and family. He said he needed someone who would be a good mother and fit in well with his family's values. I asked him what that meant exactly. He said his ideal wife would be someone who was more traditional. Someone who would be comfortable hosting dinner parties and managing a household. Someone who would be happy to step back from her career to focus on raising children. Someone who would set a good example for their kids. I told him I could do all of those things. I said I loved cooking and hosting people. I said I definitely wanted to have children and would be willing to adjust my career to make that work. I said I got along great with his family. Joshua said it wasn't about what I could do, it was about who I was. He said I was too independent and too focused on my own goals. He said I was too comfortable with things that made him uncomfortable. He said he needed a wife who was more naturally inclined toward traditional values. I asked him to give me specific examples. He said I talked too openly about our relationship with my friends. He said I was too comfortable with physical affection in public. He said I dressed too provocatively sometimes. He said I drank too much when we went out. He said I was too loud and drew too much attention to myself. None of these things were new. I've been the same person for 7 years. I've always been affectionate with him. I've always enjoyed going out and being social. I've always dressed the way I dress. He never complained about any of this before. I asked him why he was with me if he had so many problems with who I was. He said he loved me and enjoyed our relationship, but love wasn't enough for marriage. He said marriage was about building a life together and he wasn't sure we were compatible for that. The conversation ended with both of us upset. Joshua said he needed time to think. I said I needed time to figure out what this meant for us. That was 2 weeks ago. We've been living in the same apartment but barely talking. He sleeps in the guest room now. We're polite to each other but we don't really interact beyond basic household stuff. I keep thinking about what he said. Part of me wants to believe I can change his mind by showing him I can be the person he wants me to be. But another part of me is angry that he wants me to change fundamental things about myself. I don't know what to do. I love Joshua and I want to marry him, but I'm starting to realize he might not want to marry me. At least not the real me. I'm writing this because I need outside perspective. Am I being unreasonable for wanting clarity about our future? Should I try to change to be more what he's looking for? Or should I accept that we might not be compatible for marriage even though we love each other? I'm scared that if I push this issue, I'll lose him completely. But I'm also scared that if I don't, I'll waste more years waiting for something that might never happen. What would you do in my situation? Update 1. Thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. I read every single response and it helped me think through my situation more clearly. A lot of people told me to leave Joshua immediately. Others said I should try to work things out. Some suggested couples counseling. I appreciated all the advice, but I decided I needed to have one more honest conversation with him before making any major decisions. 2 days after I posted, Joshua came to me and said he wanted to talk. He said he had been thinking about our conversation and he realized he might have been unfair to me. He said he loved me and wanted to try to work things out. I was hopeful that maybe we could find a way forward. I told him I was willing to listen and work on things together. Joshua said he had been talking to his parents about our relationship. He said his mom had some concerns about me that she had shared with him. He said his dad thought I was a nice girl but questioned whether I was ready for marriage. I asked him what specific concerns his parents had. Joshua said his mom thought I was too focused on my career and not interested enough in starting a family. She thought I was too independent and wouldn't be happy settling down. His dad thought I was immature and needed to grow up more before getting married. This surprised me because I thought his parents liked me. I had always been polite and respectful with them. I brought gifts when we visited. I helped with cooking and cleaning during family gatherings. I played with his sister's kids and always remembered their birthdays. Joshua said his parents did like me, but they were concerned about whether I would be a good fit for their family long term. He said they worried that I would pull him away from family traditions and values. I asked him for specific examples of this. Joshua said his mom noticed that I didn't go to church with them when we visited. She thought it was weird that I didn't want to participate in their family prayer before meals. She was concerned that I wasn't interested in learning her recipes or traditional cooking methods. His dad was bothered by the fact that I had my own bank account and didn't want to combine finances with Joshua. He thought it showed I wasn't committed to the relationship. He also didn't like that I kept my own apartment lease for the first year we lived together, even though I never used it. Joshua said his parents weren't trying to control our relationship, but their opinions mattered to him. He said he wanted to find a way to address their concerns while still being true to our relationship. I asked him what he had in mind. Joshua said he thought we could work on some compromises. He suggested I could start coming to church with them when we visited. He said I could ask his mom to teach me some of her recipes. He said we could start talking about combining our finances and planning for the future more seriously. I told him I was willing to try some of these things, but I wanted to understand what the end goal was. I asked him if he thought these changes would make him ready to propose. Joshua said he couldn't make any promises about engagement, but he thought working on these issues would help us both feel more confident about our compatibility for marriage. I agreed to try his suggestions. The next weekend, we went to his parents' house for his nephew's birthday party. I made an effort to help his mom with cooking. I asked her to show me how to make her famous lasagna. I offered to help set up decorations and stayed late to help with cleanup. Joshua's mom seemed pleased with my efforts. She spent an hour teaching me her recipe and telling me stories about cooking for her family over the years. She said it was nice to see me taking an interest in family traditions. The following Sunday, I went to church with Joshua and his parents. I had never been to their particular denomination before, but I tried to follow along with the service. Joshua's parents introduced me to several people as Joshua's girlfriend. Everyone was friendly and welcoming. After church, we went to lunch with Joshua's parents and his sister's family. The conversation was pleasant and I felt like I was fitting in well with their family dynamic. Over the next few weeks, I continued making these efforts. I started cooking more traditional meals at home. I asked Joshua's mom for more recipes. I began reading about personal finance and suggested to Joshua that we should start planning for major purchases together. Joshua seemed happy with the changes I was making. He was more affectionate and we started sleeping in the same bed again. He would compliment me when I cooked his favorite meals or when I wore more conservative clothes to family events. But something was bothering me. I realized I was changing fundamental things about myself to try to fit into his family's expectations. I was spending Sunday mornings at a church I didn't believe in. I was pretending to be interested in cooking when I had never enjoyed it before. I was dressing differently and watching what I said around his family. 3 weeks into this experiment, Joshua's sister invited us to her house for dinner. She had prepared a big meal and invited several family friends. During dinner, one of the guests made a comment about how nice it was to see Joshua with such a traditional girlfriend. She said I seemed much more mature and settled than Joshua's previous girlfriends. I realized Joshua had been talking to his family and their friends about the changes I was making. He had been presenting these changes as evidence that I was becoming more suitable for marriage. After dinner, Joshua's brother-in-law pulled me aside and said he was glad to see me finding my place in the family. He said Joshua's parents had been worried about me for a while, but they were much more comfortable now that I was showing interest in family values. That night, I asked Joshua about these conversations. He said he had mentioned to his family that I was working on being more traditional and family-oriented. He said he thought it was important for them to see that I was capable of change and growth. I asked him if he had told them that I was making these changes specifically to address their concerns about our relationship. Joshua said he might have mentioned that, but he didn't think it was a big deal. I realized that Joshua's family now saw me as someone who had been problematic before but was now trying to reform myself to be acceptable to them. They thought I was changing because I recognized that my previous behavior had been inappropriate. This made me understand something important about Joshua's perspective. He hadn't just been expressing his own concerns about marriage. He had been expressing his family's concerns about me. He had been evaluating me through their lens rather than his own. I asked Joshua if he had ever defended me to his parents when they expressed concerns about our relationship. He said he had tried to help them understand me better, but he also thought some of their points were valid. I asked him if he had ever told them about the things he loved about me. The things that made him want to be with me for 7 years. He said he had, but he thought it was more important to focus on the areas where I could improve. That's when I realized that Joshua had never seen me as someone who was good enough for marriage as I was. He had always seen me as someone who would need to change significantly to be acceptable to his family and to fit his vision of a wife. The changes I had been making weren't about becoming a better version of myself. They were about becoming a different person entirely. I told Joshua I needed to stop making these changes and go back to being myself. He asked why I was giving up when things were going so well. He said his parents were finally warming up to me and he was feeling more confident about our future. I told him that I couldn't build a marriage on pretending to be someone I wasn't. I said if he needed me to change fundamental things about myself to be acceptable to him and his family, then maybe we weren't right for each other. Joshua said I was being dramatic and that all couples had to make compromises. He said I was throwing away all the progress we had made. I moved back into the guest room that night. We haven't talked about marriage since then, but I can tell he's frustrated with me. He keeps making comments about how I'm being stubborn and sabotaging our relationship. I don't know what to do next. I feel like I'm back where I started, but now I understand more about what Joshua really wants from me. I'm not sure if I can give him what he wants without losing myself completely. Update 2: I didn't expect to be posting another update, but things have gotten much more complicated since my last post. About 3 weeks ago, Joshua's mom called me directly. She said she wanted to have a conversation with me about my relationship with Joshua. She invited me to lunch without Joshua, which had never happened before. I was nervous about meeting with her alone, but I thought it might be helpful to have an honest conversation about her concerns. I agreed to meet her at a restaurant near her house. Joshua's mom started the conversation by saying she could see that I loved Joshua and that she knew he loved me. She said she had been watching our relationship for 7 years and she wanted to share some thoughts with me. She said she had been concerned about me from the beginning because I was so different from the other women in their family. She said I seemed to have different values and priorities than what they were used to. She gave me specific examples. She said I was the first girlfriend Joshua had brought home who didn't ask about their family history or show interest in their traditions. She said I was the first one who didn't seem eager to fit into their family dynamic. She said she noticed that I always seemed to be thinking about work or my own interests instead of focusing on Joshua and their family. She said I seemed distracted during family gatherings and didn't engage much with the children. This was confusing to me because I thought I had always been polite and engaged with Joshua's family. I asked her for specific examples of times when I had seemed distracted or uninterested. She said at Joshua's nephew's birthday party last year, I spent most of the time talking to Joshua's cousin about her job instead of helping with the children. She said at Christmas dinner, I was checking my phone during the meal. She said I never offered to help with dishes or cleanup without being asked. I realized that Joshua's mom had been watching and evaluating my behavior at family events for years. She had been keeping track of everything I did or didn't do and forming judgments about my character based on these observations. She said she knew I had been making efforts recently to be more involved with the family, and she appreciated that. But she was concerned that these changes weren't genuine. She said she could tell I was forcing myself to be interested in cooking and church, and she didn't think that was sustainable long term. I asked her what she thought I should do. She said she thought I should consider whether I was really the right person for Joshua. She said she wanted him to be happy, but she also wanted him to have a wife who would be genuinely excited about building a life with their family. She said Joshua's sisters had both married men who were enthusiastic about becoming part of their family. Their husbands had naturally gravitated toward their traditions and values. She said those marriages worked because everyone involved wanted the same things. She said she didn't think I naturally wanted the same things their family wanted. She said she thought I was trying to change myself to keep Joshua, but she was worried about what would happen if I couldn't maintain those changes over time. I asked her if she thought Joshua and I should break up. She said she couldn't make that decision for us, but she thought we should both be honest about whether we were truly compatible for marriage. She said she had talked to Joshua about her concerns several times over the years. She said she had encouraged him to think carefully about what he wanted in a wife and whether I could provide those things. This conversation bothered me for several reasons. First, I realized that Joshua's family had been discussing my suitability for marriage behind my back for years. Second, I understood that Joshua's mom had been actively discouraging him from proposing to me. When I got home, I told Joshua about the lunch with his mom. He was surprised that she had reached out to me directly. He said she had mentioned wanting to have a conversation with me, but he didn't know she had actually done it. I asked Joshua if he knew about all the concerns his mom had shared with me. He said he knew she had some reservations about our relationship, but he didn't know she had been paying such close attention to my behavior at family events. I asked him if he agreed with his mom's assessment of me. Joshua said he thought she made some valid points, but he also thought she was being too critical. He said his mom was protective of him and wanted to make sure he made the right choice for marriage. I realized that Joshua had been having ongoing conversations with his mom about our relationship for years. He had been sharing details about our relationship with her and listening to her advice about whether he should propose to me. I asked Joshua if he had ever considered proposing to me before his mom expressed her concerns. He said he had thought about it, but he wanted to make sure he was making the right decision. I asked him when he had first started having doubts about marrying me. Joshua said he had always had some concerns, but they became more serious after his mom pointed out some issues she had noticed. I realized that Joshua's mom had been influencing his decision about marriage more than I had understood. She had been actively working to convince him that I wasn't the right person for him. The next day, I called Joshua's mom and asked if we could have another conversation. I told her I appreciated her honesty and I wanted to understand her perspective better. I asked her directly if she thought Joshua should break up with me. She said she thought Joshua needed to make his own decisions, but she was concerned that he was settling for someone who wasn't truly right for him. She said she had seen Joshua with other girlfriends before me, and she thought he had seemed more naturally compatible with some of them. She said she thought he had stayed with me for so long because he was comfortable, not because he was truly excited about marrying me. I asked her if she thought there was anything I could do to change her mind about me. She said she thought I was a nice person and she could see why Joshua cared about me, but she didn't think I was the right fit for their family. She said Joshua needed a wife who would be excited about their traditions and values. She said he needed someone who would naturally want to be involved with their family and would be happy to prioritize family over career. She said she didn't think I was that person, and she didn't think I should try to force myself to be that person just to keep Joshua. After this conversation, I realized that I had been fighting a battle I couldn't win. Joshua's mom had been working against our relationship for years, and Joshua had been listening to her concerns instead of defending me or our relationship. I also realized that Joshua's vision of marriage was based on his family's expectations rather than his own feelings about me. He wanted a wife who would fit seamlessly into his family's dynamic, not someone who would challenge or change that dynamic in any way. I made a decision that night. I told Joshua that I thought we should break up. I said I loved him and I had hoped we could find a way to make our relationship work, but I realized we wanted different things. Joshua was surprised by my decision. He said we had been making progress and he thought things were getting better between us. He said he didn't understand why I was giving up now. I told him I wasn't giving up. I was accepting that we weren't compatible for marriage. I said I couldn't spend my life trying to become someone else to win approval from his family. Joshua said I was being dramatic and that all families had expectations. He said I was throwing away 7 years together over some minor disagreements. I told him these weren't minor disagreements. They were fundamental differences about what marriage should look like and what role his family should play in our relationship. Joshua asked me to reconsider. He said he was willing to work on things and find compromises. He said he loved me and didn't want to lose me. I told him I loved him too, but love wasn't enough if we couldn't build a life together that made both of us happy. I started looking for my own apartment that week. Joshua has been trying to convince me to stay, but I think my decision is the right one for both of us. Final update: I moved out of Joshua's apartment 6 weeks ago. I found a small one-bedroom place about 20 minutes away from where we used to live together. It's been an adjustment living alone again after 7 years, but it's also been good for me to have my own space. Joshua tried to talk me out of leaving right up until the day I moved out. He said he thought I was making a mistake and that we could work through our problems if I just gave us more time. He said his family would come around eventually if I kept making an effort with them. I told him I didn't want his family to just tolerate me. I wanted to be with someone whose family was genuinely excited about me joining their family. I said I deserved to be with someone who didn't see me as a project that needed to be fixed. Joshua said I was being unrealistic and that all relationships required compromise. He said I was giving up too easily instead of fighting for what we had built together. I reminded him that I had been fighting for our relationship for months. I had tried to change myself to fit his family's expectations. I had gone to church, learned to cook traditional meals, and tried to be more conservative in how I dressed and acted. But none of that had been enough to make him excited about marrying me. Joshua said he was excited about marrying me, but he needed more time to work through his concerns. He said he had been planning to propose within the next year, but my decision to leave was forcing him to rush his timeline. I asked him what concerns he still needed to work through. He said he wanted to make sure we were compatible for the long term. He said he wanted to make sure I would be happy being more involved with his family. He said he wanted to make sure I was ready to prioritize our relationship and eventual family over my career. These were the same concerns he had been expressing for months. I realized that more time wouldn't change his fundamental doubts about me. He would always be worried that I wasn't traditional enough, family-oriented enough, or willing to make the sacrifices he thought a wife should make. After I moved out, Joshua continued to text me regularly. He would send me articles about couples who had worked through major differences. He would tell me about things happening with his family and ask if I wanted to join them for dinner or events. I responded to his messages politely, but I didn't accept his invitations. I needed space to figure out what I wanted for my own life without constantly trying to fit into his vision of what our life should look like. 3 weeks after I moved out, Joshua's sister texted me. She said she was sorry to hear that Joshua and I had broken up. She said she had always enjoyed having me as part of their family gatherings. I was surprised by her message because I had assumed Joshua's family would be relieved that we had broken up. I texted her back and thanked her for the kind words. She asked if I wanted to meet for coffee to talk. I wasn't sure if this was a good idea, but I was curious about her perspective on the situation. I agreed to meet her. Joshua's sister told me she had been upset when she learned that their mom had been actively discouraging Joshua from proposing to me. She said she thought their mom had been unfair to me and had interfered too much in Joshua's relationship. She said she had always liked me and thought I was good for Joshua. She said she had seen how happy he was with me over the years and she thought he was making a mistake by letting me go. I asked her why she hadn't said anything to Joshua or their mom about her feelings. She said she had tried to talk to Joshua about it, but he had told her that he needed to make his own decisions about marriage. She said she had also tried to talk to their mom about being more welcoming to me, but their mom had said she was just looking out for Joshua's best interests. Joshua's sister said she thought their mom was too controlling and had unrealistic expectations about what Joshua's wife should be like. She said she was worried that Joshua would end up with someone who would make him less happy than I had. This conversation was both validating and sad. It was good to know that at least one person in Joshua's family had appreciated me and thought I was good for him. But it was also frustrating to know that she hadn't been able to influence Joshua's decision. 2 weeks later, Joshua called me and asked if we could meet in person. He said he had been thinking about our relationship and he wanted to talk about the possibility of getting back together. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near my new apartment. Joshua looked tired and stressed. He said he had been miserable since I moved out and he realized he had made a mistake by not proposing to me sooner. He said he had been talking to his parents about our relationship and he had told them that he wanted to marry me regardless of their concerns. He said he had realized that their approval wasn't as important as his own happiness. Joshua said he was ready to propose to me if I was willing to give our relationship another chance. He said he understood that I had been frustrated by his hesitation and he wanted to make things right. I asked him what had changed his mind. He said he missed me and realized that he had been overthinking the situation. He said he loved me and wanted to build a life with me. I asked him if he still had concerns about my compatibility with his family. He said he thought we could work through those issues together. He said he was willing to set better boundaries with his parents and make sure they treated me with more respect. I told Joshua I appreciated him reaching out, but I didn't think we should get back together. I said I had realized over the past few weeks that I didn't want to be with someone who had to convince himself to marry me. I said I wanted to be with someone who was excited about me from the beginning. Someone who didn't see me as a compromise or a project. Someone whose family welcomed me enthusiastically instead of just tolerating me. Joshua said he was excited about me and that he had just needed time to work through his doubts. He said all couples had to overcome obstacles and he thought we could do the same. I told him I didn't want to be someone's obstacle to overcome. I said I wanted to be someone's clear choice, not their backup plan after they had exhausted all other options. Joshua said he was choosing me now and that should be what mattered. He said he was ready to commit to our relationship and move forward with marriage. I told him it was too late. I said I had spent too much time trying to prove myself worthy of his love and commitment. I said I deserved better than that. Joshua got upset and said I was being stubborn and throwing away 7 years together. He said I would regret this decision and that I wouldn't find anyone else who loved me as much as he did. I told him I hoped he was wrong about that. I said I hoped I would find someone who loved me enough to want to marry me without 7 years of hesitation. I left the coffee shop and haven't spoken to Joshua since then. He has texted me a few times, but I haven't responded. I think we both need to move on with our lives. I'm doing better than I expected. I've been spending more time with my own friends and family. I've been focusing on my career and my own interests. I've been dating a little bit, but I'm not in a rush to find someone new. I learned a lot about myself from this relationship. I learned that I don't want to change fundamental parts of myself to make someone else happy. I learned that I want to be with someone whose family sees me as an addition to their family, not a threat to their traditions. Most importantly, I learned that I don't want to spend years trying to convince someone to marry me. I want to be with someone who knows they want to marry me and is excited about building a life together. Joshua has started dating someone new. His sister told me about it when she texted me last week. She said the new girlfriend is someone from their church who shares their family's values. She said their parents are very happy with Joshua's choice. I'm glad Joshua found someone who fits better with what he was looking for. I hope they're happy together and that he doesn't have to spend years trying to convince himself that she's the right person for him. As for me, I'm taking things one day at a time. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I'm optimistic about finding someone who will be as excited about me as I am about them. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. I got my Sil a job at my old company and she got pregnant by her boss. Now my husband is divorcing me for breaking up his brother's marriage. I, 30F, never thought I would be in this situation. I've been married to Henry, 34M, for 6 years, and until now, we had what I thought was a perfect marriage. We met in college through mutual friends, dated for 2 years, and got married right after graduation. His family welcomed me with open arms, especially his younger brother Nathan, 32M, and Nathan's then girlfriend, now wife, Lily, 28F. Lily and I clicked instantly. Despite being different in many ways, she's outgoing and social while I'm more reserved. We became best friends. When she and Nathan got married 3 years ago, I was her maid of honor. We've been inseparable since then, always supporting each other through thick and thin. We even started a tradition of weekly sister lunches where we would catch up on everything happening in our lives. Henry and Nathan have always been extremely close. They work at different companies but meet almost every day for lunch or after work. Their parents raised them to believe that family comes before everything else, and both brothers took this lesson to heart. Our families spent every holiday together, had weekly Sunday dinners at the in-laws' house, and celebrated every small achievement as one big family. 8 months ago, Lily lost her job during a massive layoff at her company. She was devastated. She had worked there for 5 years and had just been promoted to a senior position. The timing couldn't have been worse because she and Nathan had just bought a new house and taken on a significant mortgage. The stress was clearly affecting their marriage, and Lily was becoming increasingly depressed. That's when I thought I could help. Before my current job, I worked at Stevens & Global, a prestigious marketing firm. The CEO, Mark Anderson, 45M, was my direct boss for 3 years. We had a great professional relationship, and even after I left for better opportunities, we maintained cordial contact. When I heard they were hiring for a position that matched Lily's qualifications, I didn't hesitate to recommend her. Mark trusted my judgment. I had always been one of his top performers, and hired Lily after just 2 interviews. Everyone was thrilled. Nathan was relieved because their financial strain would ease, my in-laws were proud of how I had helped family, and Henry was happy to see his brother less stressed. Lily was over the moon and kept thanking me for helping her land such a prestigious job. The first few months were great. Lily excelled at her role, and Mark often praised my recommendation. She would tell me during our lunch dates how much she loved the work environment and the challenges of her new position. Nathan seemed happy too, often mentioning how Lily's mood had improved and their relationship was better than ever. Things started changing about 3 months ago. Lily began canceling our lunch dates, citing work commitments. She was staying late at the office almost every day, attending numerous business dinners, and traveling frequently for client meetings. At first, I didn't think much of it. I remembered how demanding the job could be, especially in the beginning. Nathan started complaining to Henry about Lily's absence. He said she was always too tired to spend time with him, constantly on her phone, and emotionally distant. During family dinners, I noticed they barely spoke to each other. When I tried asking Lily about it, she brushed it off as work pressure and said everything was fine. 2 weeks ago, our whole world turned upside down. It was during our regular Sunday dinner at the in-laws' house. Lily arrived late, which was unusual because she was always punctual for family events. She looked nervous but determined. Without any warning, she announced that she was leaving Nathan. The shock hadn't even registered when she dropped the second bomb. She was 2 months pregnant with Mark's baby and they were in love. The chaos that followed was unimaginable. Nathan collapsed into a chair, looking like he'd been punched. My mother-in-law started crying hysterically while my father-in-law demanded explanations. Henry just stood there, stunned into silence. Lily tried to explain that it wasn't planned, that she and Mark had grown close over time, and that she couldn't deny her feelings anymore. That's when everything turned on me. My mother-in-law suddenly screamed that this was all my fault. If I hadn't helped Lily get that job, none of this would have happened. My father-in-law joined in, saying I should have known better than to send a married woman to work under a rich, single man. Even Nathan, who had never raised his voice at me before, accused me of ruining his life by helping his wife find the man she would leave him for. The worst part was Henry's reaction. Instead of defending me, he just stood there while his family attacked me. Later that night, he said they had a point. I was the one who introduced Lily to Mark, so I was partly responsible for destroying his brother's marriage. When I tried to argue that Lily and Mark were adults who made their own choices, he got angry and moved to the guest room. He's been sleeping there for the past 2 weeks. The situation has only gotten worse since then. Henry barely speaks to me unless it's to ask when I'm going to fix this mess. His parents call multiple times daily, leaving increasingly angry voicemails about how I destroyed their perfect family. They've even started posting subtle digs on social media about fake friends who destroy marriages. Some of our mutual friends have taken sides, with many suggesting I must have known what would happen. Yesterday, Henry delivered his ultimatum. Either I convince Lily to leave Mark and return to Nathan, or he'll leave me. He says since I created this problem, I need to solve it. When I tried explaining that I can't control other people's actions, he said I wasn't trying hard enough because I secretly approved of what Lily did. I tried talking to Lily. She's living in Mark's penthouse apartment now and seems happier than I've ever seen her. When I brought up the family's reactions and Henry's ultimatum, she was sympathetic but firm. She said she's not going back to Nathan, that her relationship with Mark isn't some passing affair, and that she's excited about their baby. She also told me not to let the family blame me for her choices. I'm at my breaking point. My marriage is falling apart because of something I had no control over. I'm being blamed for decisions made by 2 consenting adults just because I helped someone I considered a sister get a job when she needed one. Henry won't even consider my side of things, and his family has made me into some sort of villain who deliberately set out to destroy their son's marriage. I don't know how much more of this I can take. Update 1: Things have gotten even more complicated, and what I just discovered has turned this whole situation on its head. Yesterday, I met with Rachel, who works in the accounting department at Nathan's company. We've known each other for a few years through company events, and she's always been friendly. She asked to meet for coffee, saying she had something important to tell me. I almost didn't go because I've been avoiding social interactions lately. Henry's family has been spreading their version of events around our social circle, and I'm tired of defending myself. But something in Rachel's voice made me agree to meet her. What she told me over coffee changed everything. Nathan, the supposedly heartbroken victim in this situation, has been having an affair with their colleague Sarah, 29F, for over a year. Sarah works in the sales department, and according to Rachel, their affair has been an open secret at the office. Everyone knew except Lily and the family. As Rachel shared more details, pieces of the puzzle started falling into place. About 6 months ago, Lily had mentioned finding strange texts on Nathan's phone from someone saved as S project. When she asked him about it, he convinced her they were work-related messages about a secret project he was handling. She had also noticed him working late frequently and going on weekend business trips that seemed unnecessary for his role. Rachel showed me photos from their office Christmas party where Nathan and Sarah were clearly more than colleagues. She also told me about how they would take long lunches together and return looking disheveled, how they barely tried to hide their relationship at work events, and how Sarah would openly talk about waiting for Nathan to leave Lily. After meeting Rachel, I drove straight to Nathan's office. I needed to hear his side before doing anything else. When I confronted him in the parking lot after work, he initially tried to deny everything. But when I showed him the photos Rachel had sent me, he broke down. He admitted that his relationship with Sarah started as friendship but turned romantic about a year ago. They grew close during a project they worked on together, and one late night at the office led to another, and before he knew it, they were having a full-blown affair. He claimed he was going to end it several times but could never find the right moment. He said he still loved Lily but had gotten caught up in the excitement of the affair. The irony of the situation is almost laughable. While everyone has been blaming me for Lily's affair, painting her as this horrible person who abandoned her marriage for a rich man, Nathan was doing exactly the same thing. Well, minus the pregnancy part. I went home and told Henry about Nathan's affair, thinking it would help him see the situation more clearly. I really thought this information would make him understand that the situation wasn't as black and white as his family was making it out to be. I was wrong. Instead of acknowledging that his brother was equally at fault, Henry accused me of trying to deflect blame and tarnish Nathan's reputation. He said I was making up stories to justify what Lily did and to make myself look better. When I showed him the photos Rachel had sent me, he dismissed them as old photos that could have been taken when Nathan and Sarah were just friends. He even suggested that I might have orchestrated this whole thing to make Nathan look bad, that maybe I'd asked Rachel to lie for me. When I pointed out how ridiculous that sounded, he stormed out of the house and went to his parents' place. His parents are even worse. When Henry told them about Nathan's affair, they called me immediately, screaming about how I was spreading lies about their poor son who was already suffering. They accused me of trying to destroy what was left of Nathan's reputation and threatened to expose me as a liar to everyone we know. After this reaction from Henry and his parents, I decided to tell Lily about Nathan's affair. I felt she had a right to know, especially given how everyone was villainizing her. When I called her, her reaction surprised me. She wasn't shocked at all. Lily confessed that she had known about Sarah for months. She had seen messages on Nathan's phone, noticed the lipstick stains on his shirts, and even caught them together once at a restaurant when Nathan was supposedly working late. She said that's partly why she didn't feel guilty about her relationship with Mark. She explained that she had initially started spending more time at work to avoid being home alone while Nathan was with Sarah. That's how she got closer to Mark. He would stay late too, and they started talking, first about work, then about their lives. She said Mark made her feel valued and heard at a time when Nathan was completely emotionally absent. This revelation has made everything more complicated. The family is now completely divided. Some cousins who initially sided with Nathan are now distancing themselves from him. A few family friends have reached out to apologize for how they treated me. But Henry and his parents are still firmly on Nathan's side. They're now claiming that even if Nathan did have an affair, which they still don't fully believe, it doesn't justify what Lily did. According to them, Nathan's affair was just sex while Lily destroyed the family by getting pregnant and leaving. The mental gymnastics they're doing to justify Nathan's behavior while condemning Lily's is astounding. I feel like I'm living in some kind of twisted alternate reality. I'm being blamed for a situation that was already messed up before I even got involved, and now I'm being accused of making up stories to defend myself. Henry still won't talk to me properly, and his family is now doubling down on their attacks, saying I'm trying to destroy Nathan's life by spreading rumors about him. The stress is starting to affect my health. I'm not sleeping well, I can barely eat, and I've had to take time off work because I can't focus. The worst part is that Henry sees me suffering but seems to care more about protecting his brother's reputation than supporting his wife. I'm starting to wonder if this marriage is even worth saving anymore. Update 2: After everything that's happened, I finally reached my breaking point this week. I discovered something that made me realize my marriage wasn't worth saving anymore. For the past several weeks, I had noticed Henry being very particular about where he left his phone, always keeping it face down and taking it with him everywhere, even to the bathroom. I didn't think much of it initially because I was dealing with so much already. Last night, I was cleaning our home office when I accidentally knocked over Henry's laptop bag. As I was picking up the scattered contents, I found a small voice recorder. Curious, I played it back, and what I heard made my blood run cold. It was recordings of my conversations, with Lily, with Rachel, with my friends, and even my private phone calls with my mother where I was discussing the whole situation. I dug deeper and found dozens of recordings. Henry had been secretly recording me for weeks, trying to catch me admitting that I knew about Mark's intentions towards Lily when I recommended her for the job. He was even recording our arguments, editing them to make me sound unreasonable, and sending them to his family to prove that I was guilty. When Henry came home, I confronted him with the recorder. Instead of being ashamed or apologetic, he actually tried to justify it. He said his family needed evidence of my involvement in breaking up Nathan's marriage, and since I wouldn't confess, they had to find proof another way. He actually seemed proud of his little spy operation. That's when I finally snapped. All the frustration, anger, and hurt from the past months came pouring out. I told him exactly what I thought about his pathetic loyalty to his lying brother, his spineless behavior in letting his family abuse me, and his complete failure as a husband. I pointed out how hypocritical it was that they were all defending Nathan's year-long affair while condemning Lily for falling in love with someone else. Henry's response showed me exactly who he is. He said, brothers stick together no matter what, and that even if Nathan did cheat, it was different because he didn't get anyone pregnant or try to leave his family. Then he had the audacity to suggest that I should apologize to Nathan for exposing his affair. According to Henry, I should have kept quiet about Nathan's cheating because it would have ended naturally, and now I've made things worse. The final straw was when he said that if I really loved him, I would help protect his family's reputation by telling everyone I was mistaken about Nathan's affair. He actually expected me to lie to make his cheating brother look better. That's when I knew my marriage was over. I packed 2 suitcases with my essential things while Henry followed me around, alternating between angry accusations and pleading. When he realized I was serious about leaving, he called his parents. They showed up at our house within minutes, probably breaking several traffic laws to get there so quickly. The scene that followed was like something out of a bad movie. My mother-in-law was crying about how I was destroying another marriage, my father-in-law was threatening to tell everyone the truth about me, and Henry was standing there with this smug look, probably thinking his parents would convince me to stay. Instead of engaging with them, I calmly took off my wedding ring, placed it on the kitchen counter, and walked out. I checked into a hotel and immediately contacted a divorce lawyer. To my surprise, Lily had already sent me contact information for the lawyer she used, saying she had a feeling I might need it soon. The funny thing is, now Henry and his family are acting completely shocked. They're telling everyone that I'm overreacting and breaking up the family over nothing. My mother-in-law has been calling mutual friends crying about how I abandoned her son without any warning. They still don't see how their months of harassment, blame, and emotional abuse drove me to this point. Lily has been incredibly supportive through all this. She sent me all her evidence of Nathan's affair, emails, hotel receipts, photos, even screenshots of messages between Nathan and Sarah discussing their plans to continue their relationship even after he and Lily worked things out. She had kept everything as insurance in case Nathan tried to contest their divorce. She's offered to share it all, but honestly, I'm done trying to prove anything to people who are determined to believe what they want. I've blocked Henry and his entire family on all platforms. Some flying monkeys have tried to reach out, telling me I'm being too harsh and that marriage takes work, but I'm done working on a marriage where I'm the only one trying. My lawyer says the recordings actually work in my favor, they're evidence of emotional abuse and harassment. I might have lost my marriage, but I've finally found my self-respect. Update 3: The dust has finally settled, and I can't believe how much my life has changed in just 3 months. The divorce was finalized last week, and I got a much better settlement than I expected. Those recordings Henry made turned out to be a gift. My lawyer used them to show the pattern of emotional abuse and harassment I endured. The judge was particularly disturbed by how Henry and his family had tried to force me to take responsibility for Lily's decisions and Nathan's affair. I also included evidence of all the harassing messages from my in-laws, the social media posts they made about me, and testimonies from friends who witnessed their behavior. The judge was not impressed by Henry's attempts to paint himself as the victim, especially when my lawyer presented proof of how he had orchestrated a campaign to pressure me into lying about Nathan's affair. Speaking of Nathan, his perfect victim image has completely crumbled. Sarah, his affair partner, apparently got tired of being the secret girlfriend and gave him an ultimatum: either he publicly acknowledged their relationship or she would leave. Nathan chose Sarah, which sent his parents into another meltdown. They're still trying to blame me somehow, claiming I poisoned the well by exposing his affair. Lily had her baby last week, a healthy baby girl. She and Mark got engaged, and they're planning a small wedding in a few months. She sent me a photo of the baby, and honestly, she looks happier than I've ever seen her. Mark has been incredibly supportive through everything, even helping her deal with the legal aspects of her divorce from Nathan. Henry tried to contact me one last time before the divorce was finalized. He showed up at my new apartment, saying he realized he had made a mistake and that he should have supported me instead of his family. But his apology was more about how he was suffering than any real understanding of what he did wrong. He actually said, "I know I messed up, but you have to understand how hard it was for me to see my brother hurting." I shut the door in his face. I've moved to a different city and started a new job at a competitor of my old company. The distance has given me perspective on how toxic that entire situation was. I realized I had spent years walking on eggshells around Henry's family, always trying to meet their expectations and keep the peace. Now that I'm away from their influence, I can see how manipulative and controlling they were. I've gone completely no contact with Henry and his family. I had to change my phone number because my former mother-in-law kept creating new accounts to contact me after I blocked her everywhere. Some mutual friends have tried to get me to reconcile with them, saying family is important and that everyone makes mistakes. I've cut those people off too. Anyone who thinks what they did was just a mistake doesn't need to be in my life. The irony of this whole situation isn't lost on me. I tried to help someone I considered a sister get a job when she needed one, and somehow ended up being blamed for 2 failed marriages. But honestly, I'm happier now than I've been in years. My new job is going well, I'm making new friends who don't know or care about the drama, and I'm finally living life on my own terms. Lily and I are still close, though we don't see each other as often due to the distance. She's helping me plan a vacation, my first solo trip ever. Henry never liked the idea of me traveling without him, but now I can do whatever I want. Sometimes losing toxic people from your life is the best thing that can happen to you. It's like cutting off a limb that's got gangrene, painful but necessary for survival. I've learned that sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who will hurt you the worst, and that's okay. It's better to be alone than to be with people who only love you when you're serving their interests.